Hi, and welcome to Cybrary.it. My name's Anthony, and I'm your local subject matter expert here for Networking Plus, and today we're going to talk about our concepts and components of DNS. What is DNS? What does DNS do, and how does it do it? Well, we've talked about DNS a little bit in previous modules, just sort of in passing. We talked a little bit about what it does, but this module we're going to really dive into it and really see what it does and how it does what it does. So, what is DNS? Well, DNS is actually an acronym that stands for Domain Name Service. Now, Domain Name Service is what allows us to resolve FQDNs, also known as Fully Qualified Domain Names, to an IP address. Well, what is a fully qualified domain name? Well, a fully qualified domain name is a name of a server, website, device that we can access on the network. Now, these fully qualified domain names have to be more than just the computer name. We not only need to know the computer name, we also need to know what additional information, like what domain is our computer on. Is our computer on, if we have a server that we're trying to reach, and we just type in Google in our URL. Well, we can't just navigate to Google. We need to have a .com after that, because Google is a particular, it's a particular place on the .com domain. So let's talk about domains a little bit. So a domain is essentially it's a grouping of computers that are under this same sort of control. We break up different domains into smaller subdomains by adding on additional dots and adding on additional locations. So when we take a web address, we take a web address like www.google.com. Well, when we're reading a web address, instead of reading it from left to right, let's read it from right to left. Our first .com, a .com is a root domain. Now, root domains are domains that can be accessed all across the world, and they are the main domains on the internet. If you want to have a website on a root domain, or you want to have a server on a root domain, you're going to have to register that domain so that it's yours, so that nobody else can have it. Like if you register pizza.com, which is already registered, then you'll have to go out and you'll have to actually register that you own, and you'll have to pay for pizza.com. Now, .com is one of many root domains. We have .coms, we have .edus, we have .mils, we have different .govs and different countries, .au, and the list goes on and on. Now, we've been recently adding more root domains, more domains other than just .com, .edu, .mil, .gov, and you'll see more and more pop up, such as Cybrary.it. .it is now a root domain. So it really depends on if you have the qualifications, number one, for purchasing a website or registering a domain within that domain in order to purchase one on that root domain. So, for example, if you were to try to register a .com domain, then you could just go out and register that domain. There really aren't any stipulations preventing you from doing that. But if you wanted to register a .mil, you would need special authorization to do that, because only military organizations can register a .mil domain on the root domain. So we have www.google.com. Now, our www is essentially saying we're trying to get to the www page. We're trying to get to the World Wide Web page on the server google.com. So we're trying to access its web-facing page. You don't have to register a public domain to have a fully qualified domain name. If you have a server which is just out there on your network, out there in your domain, you may have a domain such as a .local domain. Now, it doesn't have to be .local. It can be .anything, as long as that .anything isn't a root domain, isn't like a .com or a .edu. You can even hypothetically set up a domain network with a .com root domain without having to actually go and register one. But as soon as you try to put that online and connect out to the internet, things aren't going to work very smoothly for you. You're not going to be able to access those. People aren't going to have the right DNS records in order to get to your servers like you want them to. That's why we have to register them. But anyway, so if we set up a local domain, we set up a local network of computers that we want to put in a domain, then we can just set up, say, a domain that we call cybrary.local. So we have cybrary.local, and that's our domain, so that's the name for our group of computers. And if we wanted to break that down even further, we could have department.cybrary.local and on and on and on, as some more subdomains there for us. We have our fully qualified domain name that I just inadvertently erased. So we have a domain name, and now we need to make this a fully qualified domain name. So how do we make this a fully qualified domain name? Well, just like when we took a look at www.google.com, a fully qualified domain name will need to have some sort of location that we're going to on that domain. If we're just trying to access the cybrary.local domain, then we aren't really using DNS resolving. We're not resolving a server name to an IP address. But if we have a server on that domain, say if we have a sales server, so we have sales.cybrary.local, and our sales server is where we keep all our sales records, then a fully qualified domain name would be something like sales.cybrary.local. So now if we wanted to go to our sales computer and we typed in navigate to sales.cybrary.local, then our DNS would take this, and what would it do? Well, our DNS would translate that into an IP address for us. Now, it doesn't translate it in the sense of when we translate IP addresses into binary. It translates it in the sense that it goes and looks in its records and sees if it knows who our sales.cybrary.local is as their IP address. So we have sales.cybrary.local, and we need to navigate to this server. Well, our DNS will look in its records and say, okay, I have a DNS entry for sales.cybrary.local as 192.168.1.17. And that's the server that is sales.cybrary.local. So why do we have to have DNS? Why can't we just connect to a computer with its fully qualified domain name? Well, we need DNS because computers have to speak in numbers. They have to be able to take numbers and they have to break them down into eventually electrical impulses. So electrical impulses are either on or off. So we have our electrical impulses here. They have to either be on or off. And our computers know we can't memorize electrical impulse signals. Or at least not all the electrical impulse signals we would need in order to translate things into letters and numbers. So we take those electrical impulses and we convert them into and those are converted by our computer into binary. And binary is just ones and zeros. Ones standing for an electrical signal that's on, and zeros standing for an electrical signal that's off. So ones and zeros, memorizing the ones and zeros necessary in order to form the ASCII characters, which form the letters, which form the name, is still a bit hard for us. So those ones and zeros are used and translated by our computer into IP addresses for us, which is great. IP addresses are something we can work with. We can type those in on the computer a lot faster than we would be able to type out a string of binary or work with electrical impulses. So we've converted that binary into numbers. Now, think of all the websites you visit, possibly even on a daily basis. Think of all the servers at work that you connect to in order to pull your files down and to navigate and browse through the different shared folders. If you had to memorize the IP address for every single one of those computers, things would be a bit harder. If you had to know the IP address for Google in order to search for where Facebook was in order to find its IP address and then click on its IP address and navigate to its IP address, you'd be having a little bit of a tougher time navigating around the internet. So we take IP addresses and we translate those into things that humans can remember easily, which are words. Now, computers have to translate those words back down, and that's where DNS comes in. So we type in the words, and then DNS will look in its records and see who that word belongs to, like who that domain and what that computer belongs to as far as its numbers go. And this number, this 192.168.1.7, we can route with. We can now connect using that number, whereas that word wasn't really helping us as much. So we need DNS in order to get to places on the internet and get to places even in our own local domain. When it comes to our DNS, we have two main components. There's a lot of components that go into DNS, but the two main ones are going to be clients and going to be servers. Now, a client is our computer which sends a request, and the server is going to be the server that answers the request. Simple enough.